It's a podcast about what's new and awesome in 3D printing for gaming. I'm one of your hosts, Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Perram, and I'm joined by...
Kristen Sauer is also known as Seventh Mastery.
Oh, Kristen, we have had a fun week. We've had a fun week together.
I mean, we have, but it's not been
you
entirely
introduced me to
printer.
horrible gaming crack.
Horrible.
Mm-hmm.
Ow, my heart. Are you going to tell everybody what it is?
You've introduced me to the concept of spell table, which I didn't know existed. And listen, I have all of the willpower resistance of a puppy. But I don't like purely digital gaming. You know this. Like digital gaming's fun in its own ways, in like single player video games and that sort of things. But
I have an anecdote.
I can get
an anecdote about digital gaming. Why sometimes I get scared of it.
Okay.
City Heroes.
Oh,
City Heroes. I dual boxed City Heroes. I had 2 accounts. I had 14 characters on each account. All bought the extra slots. They were all max level.
Right.
And I played them both at the same time.
Yep.
I had them all, set up so the keyboards were mapped together and everything. Yep. Everybody knows what happened to that, right? They deleted.
I was
everything.
Deeply addicted to City of Heroes at the time that happened, and
deleted.
Was part of a humongous guild of on an RP server where we built multiple cities and like hundreds and hundreds of people involved in these really involved developing cross-pollinated stories. And I had so many characters and so much costumes and bought all the DLC, and it just disappeared one day.
Just disappeared. So that's always kind of.
And then I was invited to a secret server where all my stuff was, and I was having much fun.
You got your old stuff copied off of it? Dude, well, you have like every hookup in the universe, don't you?
Gee, I'm sorry.
No, you don't need to be sorry about it.
It was really fun, and you got to hang out with my guild again, and it was like awesome. But we were never allowed to talk about it until it broke the news some years later.
You got this
you also bought the thing.
No, I didn't. This was actually from like a while ago, and I just realized I hadn't opened it yet. But I bet you if I open it, I will not have the luck you
had. What are you talking about, my luck? I don't have luck. I don't believe in luck.
Whatever. You have that feat, the halfling feat. I know you do. It's true.
I mean, Knightly Valor's not all that great. It's real pretty, though, and it's shiny.
Show us the other thing. Do it. Yeah, that's what I thought. If you're listening to this, it's a anime art alternate art for Omniscience, and it's incredibly rare and a super lucky pull. Just saying.
I mean, we were kind of joking about it when on the chat when I was pulling the pack open and getting involved in your horrible gaming drug den that's going to get me involved and drain my bank account with all this Magic the Gathering expenditures that is right on the verge of happening, I'm sure. When I opened up the pre-con, it had a little pack and it had 2 cards in it, and I was like, "Oh, this is silly." And they're like, "Yeah, there's nothing." They were like, "There's nothing ever good in those." And I opened it up, and I was like, "Oh, I got a shiny thing and an anime thing." And I still have no idea what's the big deal about any of it.
Oh, it's a big deal. It's a big deal. We have Troy, James, and Bear in chat currently.
Hello, everybody. So we have a little bit of news before we jump into the main topic today. The main topic today is going to be cleaning and post-processing. What to do with your part after it comes off the printer to get it ready for use. We're not going to talk about painting the model as in to the extent of like hand painting the model and wet blending and that stuff. There is some paint adjacent stuff I'm going to be talking about this, but we're not talking about just painting up the model. We're talking about getting the model from printer to ready to do what you're going to do with it.
I might go right up to priming, but we'll get back to that.
Priming. Yeah. Priming is kind of like the level I'm going to talk about. And but before we jump into that, there's been a little bit of news.
We like news.
New printer news. We love new printer news, don't we?
We do. And this one looks fancy. I think.
Yeah, oh boy. So we do not talk about Frozen often on the show.
We
They
do
just
not.
usually don't break big news. And their printers
Well,
are a little bit of expensive side oftentimes
little
compared
expensive,
to
a
their
little bit,
competitors.
a little bit more of a reasonable release schedule,
Hmm.
maybe.
They don't release a printer every single month.
Mm-hmm.
And they just announced their new best, the Sonic Mighty Revo, which is their entry into the ultra high resolution mid-sized printing category. We're talking about your 10-inch bed category. This is your Elegoo Saturn 3 Ultra competitor, that
Mm-hmm.
sort of thing. And their play on this one is that it is just loaded. Besides the 14K screen, which
Mm-hmm.
is as a thing, where
Right, right.
it's 10.1-inch bed. It also has like sensors on the screen to determine if there's residue or print failures, and it just stops the print and lets you know. It's going to integrate a smartphone app that tells you how your print's going and will send you notifications if you need to know about something.
Mm-hmm.
It will know, like, the fact that it will recognize if a print has failed is like big deal. It's when resin fails, it's not quite as bad as when filament fails, because filament becomes a fun physics experiment after a failure
I
happens.
almost brought down the pile. I have a pile of red
Mhm,
filament that's just like it's spaghetti. Like that was just
mhm,
bizarre. It was fun to play with, but
mhm,
it was such a bad
mhm,
explosion of filament the other day that I was just like, oh my goodness.
mhm.
Anyway,
The rat's nest that I've gotten off of my failures on filament has been entertaining.
but
Mhm,
spoiler, we'll be talking about a use for it later tonight.
mhm. Uh, So, but when resin fails, usually it's not that big a deal, because it's just going to like move the print head up and down forever
Mm-hmm.
pointlessly, because no
Mm-hmm.
more resin's really going to, like, a minuscule amount of resin's going to be wasted compared to the failure.
Right.
Unless it like only failed on part of the print and the other one's still printing. And then sometimes the failure will knock into a successful part of the print and mess that up. That's true on both resin and filament. But it's
Yes.
still good to just stop it and just like, because once a fail happens, there's no you don't try to repair the part unless you're in desperate straits. It's
Yeah. There's
almost
almost no
universally worth
reason.
just
Yeah.
throwing it away and starting
Mm-hmm.
over. Like anything that's got print defects on it, unless you are like on super time crunch, just print another one. Like, this material is so cheap. Like, it with some exceptions. Okay.
Yeah,
Um,
we also
but
have it looks like Ace and C Catlet and Damie and
mhm.
David and Lava Being. And yeah, they mentioned perforated screens can still be an issue, which is true. It's true. If
If a
your FEP,
perforation happens, that's a big deal, but that usually isn't caused by a print failure. It's usually caused by printing after a print failure without checking first.
that's fair. That's fair. When you haven't looked in there and seen that you actually have like a whole big old mess sitting in there, or you had a print that just dropped off. I've actually had that happen when I had a fail and the print just dropped off and like
Oh
went right
no.
below. And then I'm like, because of course I was Tetrising and like loaded up like 17 minis on the thing, I didn't notice that there were only 16. And then suddenly print failure plus horror because there was a whole mini laying sideways
Still
in the
use a
resin
screen
tank.
protector. Even with all
Yeah,
these
yeah, oh
smart
yeah.
features, please still
Yep.
use a screen
Yep.
protector.
Well, and if you get like a Gorilla Glass or something else screen
Mhm,
protector, you could even stop even like because your bed's going to want to level all the way down and smash into that, and that can like really put some pressure on your LED LCD. I can talk. And yeah, you don't want to mess that up either. So that this sounds like a good thing to have. I wish
mhm.
I wish it was more common already.
For any failure detection at all is great. I still want the smart feature I want that we're starting to see on some of the higher end printers
Mm-hmm.
is FEP release detection,
Mm,
which will drastically speed up prints, like
yeah,
massively speed up print times across the board.
I sounded
Um,
violent. You okay? What
it's
was
the
that?
other features it's going to have are auto leveling, which has been a mixed bag with resin printers. It's super convenient that you don't need to level your thing. Just making sure the auto leveling works good. There's been hit or miss on different printer models on that, but Frozen's got a good track record, so I'm hopeful their auto leveling will be rock solid. Built-in
Indeed.
heater.
Yes, that sounds nice.
Built-in air purifier.
Also good.
Built-in exhaust vent mount, so you don't have to cut your own. It's got
nice.
it doesn't have a lift off lid, but it does have a lift up lid as opposed to opening drawers. So that I find that is a good compromise. The only kick there is that you have to have room behind the printer, so you can't put your printer right up against the wall.
Yeah, I mean, you could while you were storing
a few inches, it's fine. But if you're really tight, these sorts of print heads don't work. You could remove the lid. Don't really recommend you ever remove a lid from a resin printer.
Well, I still recommend a cookie sheet underneath your printer that you can slide it on anyway, just in case you have a really bad resin problem. And then you can just push it and pull it back away from the wall on that thing. So I recommend that.
It's got 16.8 microns by 24.8 micron resolution, which is well below that 35 micron threshold. So you're going to get butter smooth prints off of this thing.
But is that a rectangular shape again, though?
Yeah, that does mean non-square pixels. They're all using the same kind of sets of screens across the board. And then last but not least, how much does this thing cost? $1,000. Twice as much as its competitors. Yikes. But it has a lot of convenience features built into it. So don't know how I feel about that. I think that it has a lot of really nice features. It's a little bit on the pricey side compared to printers with similar features. And overall, probably not one I'm going to buy because I don't need these convenience features myself. But this is definitely like a wash and cure station machine. I don't need these features myself because I've never had them.
Yeah, right.
If I got used to them,
then they would become essential. That's fair.
I'm thinking that built-in heaters is going to become essential, and we're going to see that coming on more and more and more printers. Much like built-in air purifiers kind of started as like a pro feature, and now it's just like every printer has a built-in air purifier.
Yeah. I mean, I'd appreciate it because I remember my first couple printers just especially also because the resin was stinkier too. I think there's been like some qualitative improvements in both directions. It's getting to the point now I'm like, don't I have a print running? I can't smell anything. Either that or there's been nerve damage in my brain. I'm not sure.
Well, I mean, you've seen like a few of the videos, like I know Fallhammer put out one and stuff where they actually got like, again, the disclaimer, I'm not a health expert. I'm not a scientist.
We don't know the long-term effects of this technology.
But they measured the particle counts based off the printers and stuff. And if used correctly, the printers barely have an effect on your VOCs in your air around the printer, especially with filters, plus keeping the lid closed, plus all that jazz. And then if you start throwing exhaust things in the printer's almost none of that problem. The problem is the second you open the cleaning vat, then it's just like spikes off the roof on those things. Like they're like unhealthy air, because alcohol, friends, is not something you want to breathe in an enclosed environment. But this isn't news. Like, we've been using alcohol as a cleaning solution for so much of the problems for years and years and years. And we've long gotten used to it and know the safety protocols for handling that sort of situation. So don't do the stupid, people. Again, we can't guarantee your safety. We do not know the long-term health effects of this technology yet because it's brand new.
Ace throwing out auto leveling on the M5S is pretty solid, but there's a definite quality difference when setting it on a purposefully leveled surface. Yeah, I think that's still something we're seeing with a lot of the auto levelers. And definitely plug in your Z-axis detector. That might have happened to me recently. Anyway, the C Catlet says printing's only 20% of VOCs. Washing and curing account for 80%. The numbers sound believable to me. I haven't seen studies, but that sounds about right. Vat heating is more efficient than PTC heaters.
So they're talking about heating the resin inside the vat itself as opposed to heating the air around it.
Right.
And this is true, but vat heaters are often difficult to install. When they're built into your printer, like I think the GK2 has it built in, and it's glorious. That sort of feature might get me to really enjoy these sort of pricing. Would be fine. Lava Bean says, does filtering require that you replace anything over time? Yes, they have charcoal inserts. You do need to replace those. I'm not aware of how often you need to replace those. I don't print at a capacity that has had me ever had to change one before I upgraded the printer in question and got a new one.
I mean, that's fair. I have changed mine once just because I was trying to be, diligent. But I honestly hadn't noticed any difference before. Like the odor hadn't picked back up or anything. So I might have just been like a little proactive on that. But yeah, speaking of which, the law being at least in the Elegoo standing ones that you put into there, very easy to change those filters. Not a big deal, like super easy. So.
And that moves us on to the topic of the day. Cleaning and processing your prints.
Indeed.
So this was your topic, Kristen. Where did you want to start with? Do you want to start with FDM? Or you want to start with resin?
I think so. I think so.
Have processing.
Indeed. And I honestly knew a little bit about FDM, and a lot of times FDM, especially if you're using it for like terrain purposes or just trying to get something on your table, like usually big buildings, right? Layer lines aren't a big deal. Layer lines, like in a brick facade, don't look really weird. If you're doing it on a sci-fi piece of terrain, you've got plenty to go with that. It might even actually enhance some of the looks. Like I've got some like big blast doors and stuff that with that ridged layer line, they actually kind of look almost appropriate. So sometimes you can just pop your piece right off of your FDM printer and it's good to go. Everything's great. And whatever, but then you have other stuff, and I've been moving more into the props categories and trying to understand. Oh, it's such a pretty house, Perram. Perram's pulling up is that one of the Ian Lovecraft ones?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, this is City of something else.
This
one's not Lovecraft, I don't think.
But it's gorgeous.
This is City of Furwood. This is a City of Furwood print.
Yeah.
I do have a beautiful Lovecraft house over there.
Beautiful little house. Again, like, did you do anything with your layer lines on that? Did you do any sanding or anything?
No, I just took this straight off of my Neptune 3.
Yeah.
And just put a coat of primer on it. Well, I did. So I don't want to steal your thunder, but I had to peel my brim off.
Yes.
And I threw a coat of primer on it. And then I got the airbrush out and painted the rest of it.
Yeah. So we starting with that, your brim depends on the print, right? You can print some things that are just like straight on your printer plate and don't do really anything in terms of like support structures or brims or anything like that. I still feel like unless you're very confident in that file, and I mean very, very confident that you're going to want to still do a brim of some kind. And C-Catalyst jumped ahead of me to the first thing I would suggest, which is the deburring tool. We've talked about it here on the Christmas gift episode. Talked about it before, but deburring tools, I had no idea even what they were before I got into that. And like, wow, just such a great, like, if you've never used one before, it's a little bit like a potato peeler, in my opinion. Like, it goes right along that rough edge and just scrapes everything right off. And it is just, there is something so satisfying about that. Just like cleaning that edge, just scraping into it, and just so good. But it gets you a nice smooth edge, takes off that kind of dangerous brim, kind of almost cut. I want to say dangerous. I'm saying like I could cut my finger on it. I'm not talking like dangerous, but it definitely makes that safer and easier to get off. And this is something I'm going to remind people about FDM in general. It's hard plastic, which is great for just pulling it off and using it and painting it and going, but it's also hard plastic and it's got sharp edges. and you
To be
can scrape up your hands and cut things, and just be careful. Maybe even consider using gloves until you're really ready for like handling it for painting and stuff.
Mm,
Just if you're like handling the sharp edges
mm,
until you're like good to go. Like I'm just gonna say that because I've done I did that whole plate. I think I've mentioned it before from the Asgard Rising standalone
mhm,
terrain. I did a big
mhm,
like 2 or 3 plates actually worth of that stuff,
mm.
and it was great, but it just sharp as hell on some of those edges, and
Yeah.
just oof. Do the
It definitely
deburring
like
tools? Sorry, go ahead.
it definitely had like a bit of a sharp edge, right where the brim comes away a lot.
Mhm.
And the deburring tool is perfect. We're talking about a $5 tool, and when you buy the deburring tool, it's going to come with like somewhere between like 5 and 100 blades that come with these things when they sell them, and you're still not
Yeah,
going to pay more than $5 to $8 for it
yeah. I think
because
mine
it's
was
such a cheap
9 or
tool.
10, and it
But
had
here's the
so many
secret:
heads. Yeah,
this is
go ahead.
plastic. You're never going to need that second blade because these things are made to deburr pipes. And
Yeah,
this plastic is not going to do crap to that blade.
but some of those blades, often if you get the right one, has a variety of blades that you can put in them that
Mm,
have like narrower like blade widths, and narrow and different
mhm,
angles, and different bevels. So there are still reasons to look at those and see what heads you're getting with your deburring tool.
mhm,
Because I definitely am happy that I got like, I was just $9 or $10 on Amazon, and it has like a whole bunch of different shapes that you can use and kind of like clean up things with. Really like it. And Lava Being and Casey Kettler kind of having this conversation about it. But basically, yeah, there's a ton usually, even in just the most basic deburring tool you buy.
mhm.
So definitely, I would say start with that for sure. But
But you don't need to stock up on like 100 blades because you're not going to burn through them. You're just going to
right.
change which one you want to use, and this plastic is not going to wear that edge down very quickly at
Mhm.
all.
Yep. Next thing I'm going to say, especially if you're not necessarily using gloves, you'll want probably some pliers and or
Mhm,
clippers to tear up, particularly if you've used supports. Those supports can go pretty snug. I was printing off a prop piece the other day, and I'm still nervous to pull off these supports because they were so tight, because there was a filigree on the prop, and
mhm,
it had like this like beautiful kind of like swirling design on it, and like
mhm,
that filigree got like this whole mesh of supports to make sure it looked good. And at first I thought that was the design. I was like, well, that's unusual looking. And I was like, no, wait a second, these are the supports. I was like trying to peel them up, and they're so tight on there that it's really going to require kind of like a
mhm,
needle nose sort of plier sort of thing, or some clippers to get
mhm,
it off and just kind of pull it apart.
mhm,
Unfortunately, that then led to that other failure I talked about. So I have not got back to finishing that piece because it was like a nice to do, not a have to do. And yeah, it's going to be a lot to get all that off of there, and I would really recommend having the proper tools and pliers to do that. But when you pull all that stuff off, you're still going to get more imperfections, right? And so then we
mhm,
go into like finishing things for your cleanup, and I would say, obviously sandpaper is going to be a go-to for a lot of people.
mhm,
You're going to be able to get variety packs that have like a ton of different grits and grains. Again, usually fairly cheap. I think the one I got recently was like $12, and it was 50 sheets of about 10 different grades of grit, and
mhm,
you know pretty ample to clean up prints. But you also want to experiment with your surfaces. And this is one of the reasons I would recommend keeping some failures if you have the same material, because then you can actually check your grit and see what that's going to look on there. Like one of the pieces I'm working on right now has metallic finish. Like it's plastic, still PLA, but it has a metallic look. It's like golden. And so I don't want to
mhm,
like take that and like scrape it till I see, okay, what happens when I actually scrape the surface? Does it ruin the metal effect? Does it create extra, distortion? And I really recommend, like, if you have that failed piece or whatever, or even maybe print an extra. Since it's not that big a deal, especially if you've got like smaller bits, like this one in particular has like some trim and stuff like that. I just print an extra trim ring so you can just check what that grit's going to look like and what it's going to do. Chances are you're going to be able to clean it up just fine as long as you're willing to spend the time, but you also have to realize this is plastic, and a lot of the texture is like in that surface. If you go too deep, you're going to lose all your detail. So,
mhm.
uh, but if you don't mind losing a little detail, and you're not very patient, you can just use a Dremel. And
This is true, and this is leading to for if you're going to be working with FDM much, you're going to want the eventually to invest in a multi-tool like a Dremel.
Hmm.
A circle sander can be useful for big projects with lots of flat surfaces and things like that.
Hmm.
I like sanding sponges. You can get a sanding sponge, and those are very useful. In fact, I keep a sanding sponge by my paint desk because I also use it to sand my resin minis,
Hmm.
but specifically their feet, so they will stick to bases.
So a little higher grit to get some texture in there then.
Yeah.
And I
But
would,
if I'm finishing an FDM piece and I'm wanting to get that baby smooth finish,
uh-huh.
I have two tricks I use there.
Okay. Are you going to beat me to my punches? Go ahead. Let's
I
hear it.
don't think I should. I'm going to hold back so I don't beat you to your
No, no,
punches.
no, no. I want to hear what you got. You got
Okay.
two things.
The first one is filler primer.
Yeah, that was one of them.
Yeah. So filler primer is mainly meant for like the auto industry to like fill
Uh-huh.
in scratches and then sand it flat and stuff. And it's a step process. Keep in mind when you're doing this, you're reducing the fidelity of the print. You're intentionally decreasing the quality of the print to
Yep.
increase its smoothness.
Hmm.
So you spray on the filler primer fills in the cracks, but then you look at it, and you're like, I can still see all the layers. That's because it's only step one. It's not a magic solution. Step two is now you sand it flat again. And this time when you sand it, you will have a flat surface, completely flat, filled in if you did it right. And then once you put paint on it, you won't see layer lines on that surface. This becomes a little bit difficult because obviously this works best when you can get a nice flat sanding, but like
Hmm.
if your piece has like lots of little intricate details and filigree and stuff, that becomes much harder to get that sanded right. You can spend a whole lot of time depending on how smooth you want it, which is why I only do this really for like props and things like that, or
Hmm.
costume pieces. I have no intention of ever doing this for gaming terrain ever.
Yeah, I mean, in the quilting world, which I am adjacent to because of my life in other ways, they always say, "Would you notice it riding by on a speeding horse?" Which I think is a little hyperbole, but
Mhm.
like the same sort of thing. If you're walking by the game table, if you don't think like a person walking by a game table would see it, probably okay. You don't need to get
Yeah.
there and like get like every tiny finish, especially if you're going to lose other details for it. I would recommend avoiding it. Even priming and painting alone are going to wash out some details, right?
Yeah. And
Um,
if you're having really bad layer lines, it might be a hint that you need to tune your printer more.
Also true.
Where you're noticing the layer lines because it's not printing them equally and evenly. You're seeing print imperfections that are exaggerating the layer lines.
Hmm. Hmm. Kind of going a little bit back on that. The other thing to consider, because some of these things are going to be multi pieces, is your
Mhm.
gluing situation. Um, and I would say recommend gluing, especially your larger pieces, especially if we're doing prop work like I've been doing lately. You probably want to glue those pieces together before you do the sand because you're also going to be working on your
Mhm.
joins.
Yeah.
So, joins, you're going to probably use either super glue or epoxy. And
Mhm.
epoxy, they recommend like a 5 minute, mix and
Yeah, I
cure.
love 5-minute two-part epoxy
Yeah, yeah.
for this stuff.
And you can still get that stuff at the dollar store, by the way. But you can get it at a hardware store. You can get it wherever. But like, I've seen a lot of the. It's like almost like a syringe with two chambers. You pop the thing, and then you squeeze it out, and the two little things mix together as you're pushing it out, and it's go
Mhm.
time. And you can control how much comes out. Um, Works at least as good, if not better, than glue. You can also use super glue. We've talked about obviously before. We'll bond some plastic. There's some plastic cements you're getting into a little hinkier territory. I would recommend experimenting with some of your
Yeah.
scraps first.
And there's specific glue, I think it's called Gloop, that's designed to adhere PLA prints. Like it's specifically designed for 3D printing parts to weld them together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, if you're using super glue, you might want to consider activator if you are using something kind of like small and fiddly to get
Yeah.
that set.
Activator does make the bond brittle. So weigh your chances on which one you want better. Do you want a strong bond or do you need a bond that is for fiddly first?
Right, right.
Mhm.
Matthew Joy says, longtime Spotify listener, first time catching the show live. Well, welcome, Matthew
Hey,
Joy.
welcome aboard, Matthew. Glad to see you.
So we talked about joining in that. The epoxy can also be used a little bit, depending on how careful you are to do some of your other detail, like protection and work it into your lines. Um, but the one I hadn't heard before, and it made me very excited because I was like, of course you could do this, but why didn't I ever think of this? Was to keep your leftover filament from the same material to a degree. I mean, don't be like crazy, but and get a soldering iron and
Yeah.
use it to do melting the plastic as a welding. And I had never actually seen someone do that. And I watched some really cool videos about it. It's a really common technique, and I had no idea how useful and cool that was. And even just to, if you have like a really bad like edge line or something that printed from however the file was set up, to just melt that together. And man, some of that stuff looks really good. You'll have to probably look for a soldering iron that has variable control on temperature, so you don't make it too hot or too cold, because obviously that could cause a whole different suite of problems if you're running that was going to cause like warping or whatever, or not actually be able to, seal that on there. So, but I thought that was a pretty cool technique that I hadn't seen. Again, if some of this sounds elementary to you, long-term FDM users, remember that FDM to me is very new on a lot of levels.
There are some other post-processing techniques in the wild that I do not recommend under any circumstances.
Yeah.
Okay. There is acetone smoothing, which is a technique you might hear about, which involves this mostly works with ABS, and I hate ABS. Printing an ABS. If you print an ABS, more power to you, but it's very toxic to print, so you have to think about that. When you're melting ABS, it puts out toxic fumes that are dangerous, so you need to consider your situation there.
Yep.
More dangerous than what we know about resin printing fumes, by the way. So, and to smooth it, you put it inside a bucket with some acetone, and then you seal it, and like you time it so that the acetone fumes will like smooth out the layer lines and get you these very glossy, perfectly smooth objects, like because it melts it evenly. But like high flammability problems, very high danger situations involved with this. Absolutely never do it in your house. And even if you're doing it outside, do it with extreme caution, and more importantly, don't.
Yeah. Well, I'm also going to say
my recommendation is to not do it.
If you are skippy brained like me, you're also going to forget it's in there, and you're going to go back and you're going to have a melty candle wax goo thing that looked like your print used to maybe sort of be that shape. Just don't. I really just, totally agree with that. I was also going to just toss out really quick, when you're doing your fill work, if you don't want to use epoxy and you don't want to do those other things, you can use wood filler, which is pretty common. And there's epoxy sculpt products, sort of thing you would actually use to sculpt something raw. You could also use to
can water down some milliput a little bit and smooth it on, and it has the same effect. Also, when you're doing join lines, just like we talk about with models, milliput is an excellent tool to smooth out those join lines. It's kind of exactly what it was made for.
Right. Last thing I hadn't actually seen that I thought was kind of cool, and we kind of already talked about sandpaper, but apparently this is a common thing to get a foot callus sander. I didn't know this was a thing.
Never heard of this one.
Yeah, so they're really small. They're usually from like removing like bunions or things on people's feet, and they're just really like a tiny disc sander, but they're tiny disc sanders. So people are using them for mini prints and terrain. And I'm like, it's like the nail polish paint shaker all over again. Again, probably a little bargain basement, but at the same time, sometimes those esthetician tools are actually really good, and the price points are pretty decent too. So
how long until we see one of these rebranded into gaming terrain smoother for 4 times
the
price?
I'm sure, right? Triple, it'll have like a dragon etched on the side of it or something. It'll be like $120. Yep.
And better odds than not that Green Stuff World does it. Patents it.
Shots fired. Okay. Yeah. So that's my very we'll call it a higher level view of cleaning up FDM, and from me just having to learn and play with
Mhm,
that recently.
mhm. So let's shift gears to the other type of printing, and the one me and you have much more experience with,
Much more experience.
resin printing. Because
Hmm.
boy, is post processing with FDM, you could with the right print, post processing can be as little as shake it, you're
Pop it.
ready to use it.
Yeah. Pop.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We're just all talking about like how to take it to the next level there, or how to shave off like little things you've done to it.
Hmm.
But a lot of ways, FDM is ready to go right off the bed if you want it to be. Um,
Resin is not.
resin's never ready to go right off the bed. It gets covered in toxic goo.
Hmm.
Like that, you
Hmm.
pull this thing off the print plate, and your print is covered in liquid resin that has stuck to the cured parts as it was pulled from the vat of goo. In a lot of
Hmm.
ways, that's fun. So you need to wash these off. And we've talked about cleaning stuff before on the show many times during the beginner episodes. But whether or not you're using water washable resin, which I just don't recommend like to
Hmm.
ever use water washable resin,
I still
honestly.
haven't found one I liked and one that felt like I didn't still need to do something else to it.
Yeah, there's some ones that come a little bit more recommended. I know Faux Hammer's Wargamer resin comes
Hmm.
really recommended, and it happens to be water washable. I like resins that are water optional, and so I can
Sure.
still clean them with the good stuff and know it gets cleaned and isn't going
Right.
to explode
Right.
on me in my sleep later.
I still haven't had one explode. I did have one leak once, like crack and
Mm,
leak. But yeah, usually speaking, been pretty good. Been pretty good.
mhm, yeah. But you need to clean it in something. You got to get that goop off of it. And the most common material to use for that is uh, um, brain thinking alcohol. Alcohol is the most
Okay.
common use for this.
I didn't know if you were
Yeah.
telling me to go or not. And it's funny because earlier someone, I want to say it was Troy, said IPA, and I had a brain hiccup myself. And I was like, why is he getting beer? Oh,
No,
IPA. Yeah. Got
yeah,
it.
alcohol.
Got it.
Alcohol.
Got it.
I mean, there's other options available, but basically you have a chemical that's going to get that goo off your prints, and you dunk it in the goo and you agitate it in some fashion to clean it off of it. And that's the most basic form of this. Alcohol is the most common. I like to use methylated spirits, which is just denatured alcohol, which is
Hmm.
just alcohol with stuff in it to make it poison.
Nice. Nice.
That's
Speaking of
literally all
which,
it is.
Lava Beings asking, can ethyl alcohol be used? I have never used ethyl alcohol to clear resin. I don't know if you have.
I've never used it. I don't
Yeah.
have a way to answer that one. I
Yeah.
assume that all alcohols work because every
Work.
alcohol I've used has worked, including vodka.
You've used vodka to clean your mini.
Listen, the pandemic got me into desperate experimentation when alcohol was impossible to buy and I needed my crack fix.
That's amazing. That is amazing. Then Nate's Miniatures stopped by and said hello. I'm not sure. Has Nate's Miniatures been on before? I'm not sure. Maybe.
Well, howdy.
Uh,
Welcome aboard. Denatured alcohol is my favorite. You can get it from just about any hardware store, DIY store, most convenience stores will sell it. And all big box stores sell it. Yeah, and it comes by these many different names. It's also called methylated spirits. It's for in the US, I can usually get it for about $20 a gallon, and it comes in
mm,
gallons,
hey,
which
there
is
you go.
helpful once you get a wash and cure machine
Hmm.
to handle these mid-range printers because we'll get to that. So you need to get the bare minimum. You need to get a tub of this stuff that you dunk your prints in and you wash them off. Some people like to spray the alcohol on the parts and rub them with a toothbrush. Like you're going to just basically use this liquid to loosen and get the liquid alcohol off of your part before you cure it. You could just cure the part, but that
You could.
goopy alcohol on there will harden and ruin the detail on the model. And
Yep.
sometimes if you don't cure it long enough or you have a time you're used to curing stuff, that goopy alcohol takes longer to cure than the already half cured solid model, and it'll still be sticky and only partially cured and still dangerous.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's lots of reasons you need to clean this stuff. Do
Mm,
not Do not ever handle the model with your bare skin until it has been cleaned and processed.
Yeah, when I've had that problem and had to notice that little stickiness, I usually have to sun cure them, and like for a while, because that getting that alcohol to finally evaporate, so the curing takes entirely. It's a bit much. We also have Stream Daddy Gaming and Damie in chat. Stream Daddy sometimes bounces back and forth raids with me in Magic the Gathering streaming when I'm on the TikToks
Woohoo!
and the T-Witch. So
I
print your games, 3D printing, cleaning vodka as a brand. Hey, I kind of like it.
It didn't work great because like you need really good proof. I mean, it worked, but it didn't work great. I don't recommend it, and it was also very expensive. Even though I
I'm
was buying
sure.
the
Oh
cheapest
yeah,
stuff I could get
yeah.
my hands on.
Gordon's.
Um,
Just kidding.
There's other options too, since we're talking about cleaning material. Some people like to use LA's Totally Awesome. Sometimes people like to use purple stuff. Sometimes people like to use mean green. There's some like pre-made dedicated resin cleaning chemicals out there now that are like purpose built to clean resin. It is some of those stuff works better than others. Look at the reviews and look up some videos on them. I definitely do not think that the detergent based ones, the LA's Totally Awesomes, the purple stuff, the mean green stuff, does not clean as well as the alcohol does. And
I've only done it once, and I had residue that I didn't like.
Yeah,
I had to water rinse it like
it can take a
6
few
times.
extra cleanings to get through the same job. I've seen it work depending on the stuff. Mean green for me worked well after two. Like I had to do 2 washes to get the same result as one equivalent alcohol wash.
Right.
And that works. Then there is the other direction. There's one more material that works wonderful for cleaning resin, and we've talked about it once already on the show. Acetone.
Oh, no.
Acetone will absolutely clean those resin parts in a second. Like it is stupidly good at this job. But you're still dealing with acetone in a vat. You got to be super careful with that. It's very highly flammable. So is the alcohol, by the way. So be very careful with this stuff. And we use nitrile gloves when we're handling the resin because it's the resin. Latex gloves don't work with resin. The resin will permeate the latex. Acetone eats nitrile gloves.
Not surprising.
So this makes it difficult to work with. You have to like either use a basket, or what I had to use was tongs, and then still sometimes it would splash on me and my gloves would get a hole in it wherever the acetone hit. And also the fumes for acetone are so much more intense than even the methylated spirit fumes. So lots of ventilation required when working with this stuff. And then you have all the dangers. And while it works, I hate this. I hate to say this because it does work so much better than alcohol in cleaning the stuff. It's just like almost instantaneously purely clean part when you just shake it around in there. But it's so much dangerous. It has so many downsides that I've just noped right out of using it. Methylated spirits does such a good job anyway that you do not need to go all the way to acetone. It really is not it works. It really works great, but like know what you're getting into. And I choose not to go with that route, even though I know how well it works. Because methylated spirits, if you do have access to it, will work absolutely wonderful. And 95% plus pure alcohol works wonderful to get this job done.
Have a couple of questions
to
get to real quick. What to do with the alcohol afterwards? I recommend sun curing it and getting the plastic to get out of it.
As you're using the alcohol, the leftover resin will build up inside the alcohol itself, and eventually it gets very dirty and it will stop cleaning your parts effectively. I have some advice coming up in my advice list here to give on that.
Oh, awesome.
Do you happen to remember to do that?
Remember what the substance was to try to clean it up? I forget. Somebody recommended a couple episodes back.
Sorry, I never went that route.
Hopefully somebody will remember it and bring it up in chat again. But also
this is my method of cleaning it up.
Got it.
I take it and I use an empty milk jug, a clear empty milk jug, like the one, not an opaque one.
Right.
And then I use a funnel and pour it all into that. And then I set it out in the sun for a few days. And then I take the lid off of that jug and I put it somewhere with a covered area outside to let the alcohol evaporate into nothingness.
And you get a little
and
puck
then I
of
put the
plastic
cap
in the
back on
bottom.
that jug and toss it in the trash. Because at that point, it's just a solid bit of resin plastic at the bottom of a jug.
Apparently, there's a movement to have me 3D print a hat that matches yours, and for you to 3D print a beard that matches mine. I'm not sure I feel about this.
Incredibly uncomfortable in both directions.
Yeah, and probably
did we mention the sharp edges and
sharp
plastic?
edges. Yeah, I don't know enough about this. I don't like it. C. Catless said it was alum powder to do that. So
if it's a magic solution there, that's wonderful stuff.
Also recommended butyl rubber gloves.
Yeah, if you do the sun cure with the alcohol, you can try to wait until the cured resin has all settled to the bottom, and then decant the alcohol from the top, and then reuse it as cleaning alcohol. That's good if you have patience and skill to get it out there, and the siphon tubes. I
tried it a couple times.
About 4 cycles out of alcohol on my experiments. Yeah.
I got like one reusable that was kind of okay, but that was about it. The second time I did it, it was just mucky as heck. But I was probably waiting too long. You were going to mention tip on how to recognize when you think it's too far gone.
So at the very least, you need some sort of container to put the alcohol in to clean it. But that's not the most efficient way to do this. And there's different types of containers that work really good. Containers with baskets in it, like the beloved pickle jars. Like people like to go get big pickle jars off Amazon and use them because you can just shake the pickle basket with your mini inside and then pull it out and let the alcohol drain. It's great. It's a great way to do it. I prefer bigger tubs than that because I like to just put the whole plate in it at once and clean them. And so I like to find a thing. I like to match my container for my cleaning solutions to be at least big enough to hold a full plate of whatever I'm printing at once.
See, Catless says 2-stage wash for the win. I would agree.
There we go. 2-stage wash. I'm going to say 2 stages isn't enough. You need 3 stages.
Oh.
Yep.
Really?
So 2-stage wash is you have the dirty bath, which is alcohol in your first container. And it is the first thing that those minis hit. And you shake it. And then when you are done with that, you put it into the second vat, which is called the clean bath. And the dirty bath will very quickly become gray and dark gray as it gathers more and more stuff. And this is the one that's going to most often end up out on the porch getting sun cured over and over and over again. Well, don't use your cleaning container. Put it into the other container, the sacrificial containers. To sun cure. Very important because eventually that gunk builds up at the bottom of these containers if you sun cure in them, and it's a whole mess. I like to that's why I use the milk jugs, because once it becomes a solid puck of resin at the bottom, I can just ditch that thing, no problems. It's just a solid piece of plastic at that point. I don't need to worry about protecting it. Next up is the clean bath. And it will take a lot longer to get cloudy. And then you have your third vat, which is just the bowl of warm water at the end of the equation. Yeah. So you go dirty bath in the clean bath. In the clean bath, you'll see some clouds pop off the resin from the dirty bath, where honestly, it's actually the dirty bath itself sticking to the models, not the resin at that point. Because if you vigorously clean them enough in the dirty bath, then you rinse it off in the clean bath. The cloud you're seeing there is the dirty bath, not resin on your model, hopefully. But if you then move to the water and you notice a cloud pop off of your water, it's time to do the rotation. And the rotation is basically at that point, the clean bath has started to saturate.
Right.
And it's not getting everything off. The warm water will loosen it up. Those models, those first few models, even those several prints after that, will still be very usable. The warm water will loosen up any of the last vestiges of problems, then throw it in your cure machine, you're good. But that's when I start planning to rotate. The clean bath becomes the new dirty bath.
Got it.
The dirty bath gets the milk jug treatment.
Gets the
And
jug. Got it.
new alcohol enters the old dirty bath. It is now the new clean bath.
I kind of like that rotation. If you're limited in space, one of the things I have done that's similar to this is had my primary alcohol bath, which I would call the dirty bath in this situation, and then had a second squirt bottle, like with a little, like a targeted squirter, and cleaned alcohol on as a second bath on spots on it. I've done that, and then let that run back into my dirty bath, and it kind of kept it full as alcohol evaporated anyway. It was a little more space efficient, but I think you're gonna get better results with Perram's technique. So
yeah. And also my technique, this is what I did before I got a wash and cure machine. When you get one of these magic wash and cure machines, your life becomes a lot simpler. You fill the wash and cure machine up with alcohol. Then you take your print off the printer. You don't even bother removing the print from the print bed. You insert the print bed and all into the wash and cure machine. It washes your print while still attached to the print bed. Then you take it off of the wash and cure machine. You shove it. That's when you remove it from the print bed. Put your print bed back on your printer. You put that print into the warm water. You get the supports off. You dry the models. You throw it in the cure half of the wash and cure machine. You cure your models. You got a perfect model. And I'm wanting to adapt my technique here because that's the minimum technique. But this will not very quickly. It actually takes a long time to dirty up the vat water, because then you're back to basically one wash again. Though you have one wash, the thing is these wash machines actually have a motor inside with a fan that agitates the resin, so it does a lot better job.
Right.
Getting in more efficient use of the alcohol. But I'm going to adapt getting back to the dirty bath technique. So I'm going to have a tub that is just the dirty bath, and I'm going to go print bed, still not removing it from the print bed. No, it never comes off the print bed. Into the dirty bath. Shake. Then into the wash and cure machine. And then bowl of water, then cure. And the reason I want to do it in that order is because the cure machine has those little magnetic blades at the bottom. And as the gunk builds up in there, it's a lot more annoying to clean. You can just remove the blades. You can get there, put your gloves on, get some paper towels, just do it manually. But it's a lot easier if you're able to just avoid that, to when you get to the point where, because at the point that the water in the wash and cure machine makes if you remember my previous cycle, it's now the clean bath. And then you go, boom. Oh no, I have clouds in my water now. So it's time to rotate. It's so much easier at that point to just pour the alcohol, like take your dirty bath, give it the milk jug treatment, pour the alcohol into the dirty bath, put new alcohol into the wash and cure machine. This is only slightly a variation from the before, but where before I was actually just literally shifting the containers around. And this time I'm actually having to pour the alcohol out, because at that point you don't let resin build up on the spinny blade. So you don't have to get in there very often with your gloves and reach down into it and clean it and annoying stuff. So just this version of it prevents the buildup of resin residue on the moving parts of the wash and cure station.
Got it. Point of clarification: C-Catlet said, careful using a spray bottle. You're atomizing alcohol. I was not talking about a spray bottle. I was talking about like a pipette tip that would you just squirt like
Goose
a
tank bottle.
Yeah, that's a better word for it. But definitely don't use a spray bottle, because that's absolutely correct. You would be atomizing it, and you would definitely need to be in a controlled environment with a mask if you were doing it that way. And I wouldn't recommend doing that at all. Anyway, it would just diffuse all over the mini and not clean it very well.
And also fire.
Also fire. Yes, also fire. But I just wanted to make sure that just because if C-Catlet heard it that way, I might have said something that made it sound like you were using a pump spray bottle. No, don't do that. Just want to make sure.
You're talking about a gooseneck squeeze bottle, like a tattoo artist would use.
Sure.
Or your dentist uses.
I suppose that's true. Mangosteen Gabe says hi.
Hello.
Curing.
Curing. Yeah, because once the part is washed, it's only partially cured.
Mhm.
It's mostly cured, but you need to put a hard outer shell on it just to increase the durability of the model, because it'll
Mhm.
be soft and brittle and easy to break. And like even your fingernail can put an indentation into a model fresh off the printer. You don't want that to happen. You want your models to be a little bit more durable, right?
Mhm.
So put them in a cure station, either one you built yourself or one you
Sure.
bought. Cure
Again.
stations by themselves are fairly cheap if you just want to buy a cure station.
Mhm.
You can just get a 405 nanometer UV light of any variety
Mhm.
and build your own. I remember doing the shoebox method lined with aluminum foil, where I cut a hole in the lid and put the UV light in the lid.
I also
That
did
worked
do the
wonderfully. Hmm?
nail drying UV bed. Also did work for quite a while for me,
It
believe it or not.
works. It works. It does work. It is sometimes inconvenient because they have timers on them that are often
They
not conducive with the timers you want to use.
they are. I usually had to run them twice, but also
Mhm,
the other big inconvenience with them to consider is there's a height restriction. So if you're doing like large size minis or big
mhm,
projects, it's not going to work.
yeah. Um, then you have like the big professional cure machines that have like the spinning platters and
Mhm.
the light bars and all that cool stuff. I recommend eventually going down that road just for convenience sake. It just saves you so much more time.
Yep. Love
Bucket
love
lined with
mine.
UV LED tape is another option that I've seen people do.
Mhm.
And then, of course, there is the tried and true throw it in a metal bucket and set it outside in the sun.
Yeah, and oddly, sometimes it's the best finishing thing I do. Like I printed off some Arcanine Pokemons for someone recently, and they were adorable and they were great. And I cured them like 5 times, and they still smelled like resin. I was like, "What is going on?" So when I got them, like before I gave them, I put them in the sun, and like that fixed, that last little
Mhm.
lingering whatever, and they were fine. But
And can I tell you the ultimate thing to stop the smells like resin problem
what's that?
or any sort of worry about the cure status of your mini?
Mhm.
Primer,
Well, that'll do.
paint,
Paint,
or
primer,
varnish. All of
sure.
these things. Varnish is just primer without pigment.
Yeah, yeah. Also, another way you can create some smoothing for things, both with FDM
Mhm.
and resin. So, not that you're seeing
And
a
you can
ton
change the
of.
finish. You can make it super
Yes,
shiny if you want it shiny.
you can.
Mhm.
All
I can't
right.
can though.
You could can. You could have one here and one here, and you could do a zenithal. Can.
Ooh, you know.
Yeah, I am way overly fond of zenithal dual color priming, and I
Mhm.
I won't shut up about it. It's hack airbrushing. Let's just be honest, what it is, but it's fast.
It works great. Like I have access to an airbrush station fully ventilated, like literally here. I'm touching it right now.
Mhm.
Um, I still grab the rattle cans 9 times out of 10.
Yeah,
It's
yeah, it's
just
just
so
so
much more
fast.
convenient.
Well, and you can. There's so many good paint ranges now with like Army Painter or Vallejo or
Mhm.
whatever, and you can just go get
Or
so many
just
colors.
Rust-Oleum at this point has 9,000
Sure.
freaking paints
Though
colors.
I find
They
Rust-Oleum sometimes sneaks in gloss that you didn't expect. So sometimes that one
Yeah, you
throws
gotta
me
be
off a little
careful with
bit.
that.
Yeah. Even when it says matte, it's sometimes a little shiny. I like it.
Mhm.
All
See,
right.
Catlet does mention UV LEDs on some wire to cure the inside of hollow prints. That is also true.
Ooh.
Also, you can cure in water to achieve the same effect to let the water naturally refract the light inside the print,
Mhm. Have done
which is
that.
a great way to do that.
Yeah.
Also, water curing reduces the warping on the prints, so that's also a great.
Yep.
It's like I'm actually looking for the correct size water container for my wash and cure machine because I do
Mhm.
kind of want to switch to pure water curing just because of all the benefits involved in it.
Yeah.
And I just need to find one that's like the perfect size that it fills up most of the vat room in my printer, but still lets it go whirly whirly.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Cool. Any other parting shots for
Um,
post-process resin?
you need to clean your resin pieces in more than one ways. You have to get the support marks and stuff off of them, the supports off.
Yes.
We've talked about warm water to get supports off super easy. That's two. And then your number one best tool is at this point, go ahead and get the most supports off that you can with just the warm water trick. But if there's
Mhm.
hard to reach stuff, stop,
Mhm.
cure it, take it
Mhm.
into your model prep area, and then get those off very carefully with your X-Acto knife or your hobby knife and stuff like that. Because while it's in that pre-cured state, It isn't the most susceptible time when you're trying to wiggle in there with your thumb or fingernail or whatever. You don't have the right tool handy because you're wearing these gloves and you don't want to get these tools dirty. It's the prime state to just break off a sword arm.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Raging
I
heroes.
break most of my
you
prints. I break most of my prints at this stage. They
pulling out the
printed
sword.
great.
Yep.
They're in the warm water. They're out of the warm water, and I'm being stupid. And that's when I will break a model.
Well, for me, I got excited. I put 4 of them on the plate. I do the first one super carefully. Everything's great. Second one, maybe I do a little like stress and bend it and break one of the things, and I get mad, and then I'm mad, and I get to that next one and I break that, and then I'm really careful with the 4th one. So I end up with 2, but I usually broke those 2 middle ones almost guaranteed. It seems like.
And this is why for like models and stuff, if I'm printing a hero, it's easy to just print 2. And if I'm printing a squad for like a unit of game where I need a whole bunch of bandits for D&D, I throw a few extra bandits on that plate because they'll survive. Like some of them might not survive it all the way to the paint desk, is what I'm saying. And even then, at the paint desk, I might drop one on the floor. And if I'm using the good resin, that's not a problem. But sometimes I'm using the bad resin.
He might even throw it on the floor on purpose. He just does that sometimes.
No, I might do that. You want me to do that?
No, please don't.
I got a green one right here.
No, don't do it.
It'll survive. That one will survive. Don't do it. But remember, like at the printing stage where you've not put any work into it, they're just worth pennies. Yeah, they're not. True. They have no intrinsic value yet. You haven't even painted it yet.
I mean, you might have put a little effort in getting those supports off without breaking the sword, though.
Yeah. But then just like the ones you don't need, throw them away. When you have your fully painted cool freaking squad there, or maybe paint them because at an event somebody might step on your mini. Perram might wander by your table and throw your mini on the ground. And then instead of having to resort to the toolkit, like the little first aid kit to glue the spear tips back on, you can like look cool as shit when you reach in your bag and just grab the spare.
Bust out your extra one. Boom. Also, you can get away with doing your little y-axis flips and kind of get a couple more looks in your squad if you need to. So there's that too. If you're gonna print the extras anyway. You've seen them. I've seen everybody's watched this show.
It was part of my demo at where people were. So it was part of my demo when I was doing OPR booth. Okay. People would often ask, well, it's 3D printed. Aren't they super fragile? And I'm like, they can be if you're using the right resin. But if you use the right resins and with like tenacious mixed in or some of the tough resins, they become super durable. And then I would just reach into the bag of giveaway minis, grab one and toss it on the ground, watch it bounce, pick it back up and hand it to them. It was part of my demo.
Nice. Your violent soul buried under all that niceness, aren't you? All right.
It's just a toy. It means nothing.
Who hurt you? Anyway. Anything else? We talked about priming them already at the end. Are we missing anything? I mean, you could sand them. I still don't really usually do that for most of my resin, unless it's big. It's a big piece. I probably do. If I have a pockmark, maybe. What else would you do?
As a Samaflange Perram Ninja Smoke Bomb with minis. If in the right environment, that is a valid stealth technique. Like if you're at like Gen Con and you need to get away, just taking up like a whole handful of minis and tossing in the air, nobody's going to be paying attention to you anymore.
Say free and throw them.
Yeah. Free minis. Whee! Then run. Shout outs. Time for some shout outs.
Yes.
Okay.
I heard
first, I want to shout out Seventh Mastery's streams. If you haven't checked them out, go check them out on Twitch and the TikTok. Very fun chatting about Magic the Gathering and stuff and other nerdy adventures.
Yeah, Magic Gathering, Final Fantasy 14. Sometimes a little Pal World.
Pal World is so fun. We've been playing the Pal World server together, and it's been a lot of fun.
That's been fun. Yep. Well, thank you for that shout out. Speaking of shout outs and people on the show, is your campaign. Your campaign.
Oh, yeah. It's right now. Secrets of Tishel. One Page Rules has got their first campaign going, so I guess I'll do a self shout out there. It's already super funded. Like, we're very
Yep.
happy
Yep.
with the results. It's been a very successful campaign. Thank you everybody that participated in it. It's got 4 new heroes. My favorite is Techie, the cute little shy wizard lizard.
The wizard
And
lizard, love it.
a new like story campaign with like 10 missions and the option to get like all of the Vinci and Saurian models for like the stupidest cheap price. Like I like way stupid cheap prices when you start looking at the percentages we knocked off of those models.
I was about to say, just generally speaking, during the promos, your model packages are really high value. So this is even better. I have one more
And we
too.
also teamed up with Tooth and Coats to do paint sets for it, which leads to my
Nice.
next shout out. We also teamed up with Chronicle, who makes
Mm,
wonderful brushes. I'm just
mm.
shouting out to them to be fair. They do make wonderful brushes. I love them. I use them myself now, and they are very cool. It's also one of the easiest ways to get um, Kalinsky Sable brushes in the States right now because of all the problems of getting Kalinsky Sable brushes right now without having to pay $30 a piece for them.
Right.
But today, Tooth and
Today.
Coats put out their new paint set on Kickstarter.
Oh, very cool.
So another 60 paints.
I was supposed to say, I now have 2 of those, and I also
Mhm.
got their paint rack, so I think I'm good for a while because I still am mostly using those the Army Painter ones. So I'm like
Yeah.
set on paint for like a year or 2 at least.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it because they've got a lot of cool like turquoises and like a lot of the color gaps that are in the range, and there weren't very many after that second set. But
Mhm.
they've also now like the big thing is they've got like a whole crap ton of colored metallics are now added to the set.
Nice.
They're also filling in all of the washes that were missing from the wash line. So now there's like a turquoise wash and a bone wash and a yellow wash and a fire wash and all that jazz. And again, like just disclaimer, I think I already said that I've been working with them and there's and they've also sent me like a lot of free paint, so I'm compromised on that, so keep that in mind. But
I'm not. Mine
it
was given to me
exists.
as a gift by a friend, not by the company. So I've used it, and it's good stuff. It is very much what they say it is. So I would check it out. Um,
Mhm.
Another one last
Nate's
one.
Venture says Army Painter and Two Thin Coats are expensive there compared to AK Interactive and Vallejo, and that is bizarro world for me.
Yeah,
Well, Two
yeah,
Thin Coats
very
is
much.
kind of at the high at the
Mm,
high end of price. It's kind of like
yeah.
right there with Vallejo, but Army Painter's dirt cheap. I'm curious as to where this is, Nate's Miniature, but like to
Australia.
hear AK Interactive being the cheap paint, that's weird to me. But like, great, Vallejo and AK Interactive are wonderful paint brands.
Yeah, Nate's in Australia. So
Oh, okay, yeah,
yeah.
Australia just throws things up, down, and backwards.
Mhm.
Hmm.
David asked me if they named colors tentacle something. I'm going to tell you that several companies have already named their colors tentacle something. So that
Do you
tactic's
have them?
already been used to me. I do. I do have
Okay,
several
so it works.
tentacle pink and stuff. I mean, some of them were just in sets. But speaking of tentacle pink, I have one last shout out, at least for me, which
Ooh.
is forever ago, Arc Villain did Mind Flayers, and I loved them.
Oh.
But I had to buy them because I missed that month. I missed
Mhm.
signing up. And when you missed that month, you missed the Nautiloid.
Oh no.
And they have finally done a campaign currently for the Nautiloid. So you can get the missing
Yes, yes,
Nautiloid
yes.
if you bought that set.
I
It
have
is a
to I have to throw
gorgeous.
the disclaimer up again. I've got some conflicting interest with this campaign specifically, actually,
Ah,
but it's still a great campaign. Keep going.
yeah, no problem. I'm just pointing out that I was missing it when I was a patron, and I missed it because of billing glitch, and it was really difficult to get that Nautiloid, and it's one of the best Nautiloid minis there is. You can also pick up all the Mind Flayer stuff if you're riding your BG3, your Baldur's Gate 3 high, and you want that big tentacle ship. That's probably the closest one there is to it. So
It's got playable interiors too.
yeah, it's gorgeous. It's nuts.
Like this is like one of those pieces that is just like game room defining decoration piece as well. Like once you're even if you use it and you play with it, awesome. You're gonna have memories forever. And then you put this on a shelf in a place of honor, and it's one of the nerdiest things you could have in your game room.
Right, right. I'm gonna have to put one together after things calm down a bit, but
Oh yeah, they have the Mind Flayer dragon included in the set.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, creepy.
We are way over.
Oh, we are way over. So we need to call this episode to a close. If you want more of our content, you can find it over at printergames.com. You'll find all the past episodes, those links to the socials. And until next time, I'm Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Perram, and I'm joined by
Kristen Sowards, also known as Seventh Mastery, and don't forget to use your screen protector.